Okay.
Okay. Hello, it's my pleasure to introduce Pandelis Perakakis. Pandelis studied in Aristotle University of Thessaloniki and studied psychology. And then he finished his PhD in Spain in psychophysiology. And began his academic interest on respiratory physiology, and he's a founder of which suggests alternative ways of communicating scientific literature. I don't want to say more, so but at least please continue.
Big thanks to Pavlos and Sofia for the invitation. To be honest, I'm on holidays. I didn't come actually here to see my family here in Crete and we have to spend 2 weeks. But since I'm here and Sofia knew about this project that we're working on, they thought it would be a nice idea to talk with you as well and get to know each other. So I'm going to, I didn't prepare anything specific for this event, so I'm going to use some slides of previous talks, but we can use them just to introduce the topic, and we can have, hopefully we can have discussion. I would like this to be as open as possible, like interactive. You can stop any time. I will also be asking, because the point is to discuss a few things that I believe are of interest to everyone who's doing professional research. So here we can talk about open access. There is right now there's a big movement in science in general about with the prefix of open, trying to open up processes, different processes. But we can say that open access was the first a specific movement that focused on the problem of accessibility to academic articles, because you all know that traditional publishers, they have a paywall on articles. You either are subscribed to the journal so that you can read all the content of the journal, or you pay per article so that you can read individual articles. So this obviously was a problem for the academic community, and the open access is a movement, is an entire movement. Yeah, just showing that it's a movement trying to address the problem, which is the problem is one way to present it is in a graphical and light and maybe fun way, is that universities or research centers, they hire academics with taxpayers' money to produce research. And then this research is published in journals, and then the journals ask again for access. They ask again and more money for research that has been already been paid. So the actual problem is that taxpayers are paying double for the research. Once, so that the research is produced, and twice, so that the research is accessed. So we have this intermediary here. We have academic journals, which is an intermediary. And as in any economic environment, when you have somebody who is intervening between the production and the people who consume the product, then an intermediary supposedly has to offer some value to the whole process. In the beginning, the value that the journals were offering is that they would take the research, they would package the research into journals, and then distribute. But this was in the times before the internet. Now we know that the scholarly communication is very fast using modern technology. We don't actually need journals for this reason. There's a different thing that journals are doing now, and for which they are still necessary. So we're going to be arguing a little bit about how necessary they really are. Here's the problem of accessibility. It can get really annoying. I'm sure that you all have. I don't know what's the policy here at Forth. Forth is probably paying subscriptions to many journals. Yep. So if you connect with the ID of Forth, you have access to many journals. Usually that's what happens with universities. So we should all be conscious that when we get access by logging in through our university or research center, it's that somebody is paying big money to publishers so that we can have access. If you try to do the same from outside your university or research center, then you probably hit this paywall, which means that you have to pay to access research, and this has become even more important problem when we're talking about clinical research, when we're talking about people who want to get access to medical data for themselves or for their relatives that they don't have access to research that has been funded by public money. So this was one of the things that triggered the open access movement, trying to solve this problem. And yes, this is one slide just mentioning some journal prices, because if we have an intermediary that is adding some value and then is asking a small price for this value, then we could say that this is okay. But just to become aware of how much we pay for these articles, here are some examples. The most this is the price for the price per article charging that is charged by different publishers. The most expensive, let's say, publisher is Emerald. Then we Blackwell, and we have different examples of journals, specific journals, and how much they cost per article. Price per citation, price per article. Here is that's how much we pay for one article published in this journal.
How much is that?
1,430. I think it's in dollars. That's per article. That's how much the publisher is charging. If we calculate all the journals and subscriptions by all universities, that's how much they get per article. Okay? Published in the journal, not the journal, one article in the journal. So you see.
So this is to publish the article or to read the article?
No, this is how much the publisher gets per article. Receives the profit of the publisher per article published in this journal.
As a result of all subscriptions from all over the world.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So, so here are some other interesting graphs. Here are the profit margins of specific companies. We see that the highest profit margin in general are putting together all companies about all different products. We see that first we have a publisher, which is Springer, then we have Mike with 37%. That's the profit. This is money that is above the cost, but it's profit, it's clear profit. Yeah, it's a profit margin. So we have 37%. And after that we have Microsoft, and then we have another publisher, Elsevier, and then we have Google, and then we have another publisher, which is Taylor & Francis, then we have Disney, Apple, and then we have again publishers here. Wiley is another publisher, Starbucks, eBay, then another publisher, Walmart, another publisher. So you get an idea about how big business we're talking about, how profitable the academic publishing industry is. And of course, this is a profit margin. Maybe Microsoft is gaining more money, but it means that the actual cost of the product of the added value of Springer is so low that we have a high profit margin. So of course, naturally, academics they started to organize and try to put some pressure on journals. One of the movements that has become very famous, I don't know if you're aware about the Elsevier boycott. It was started by a mathematician, Tim Gowers, his name. He put up a website, and one day he started inviting colleagues to make a boycott, to start a boycott against Elsevier. When you get into this website, this is the address. When you get to the website, you give your affiliation and your last name, first name. You can make a comment, and then you can choose. I plan to refrain from publishing, referring, and editorial work at Elsevier. So you can choose. You can say, you can publicly state that you do not, you boycott Elsevier by not publishing Elsevier, by not becoming a reviewer for any Elsevier journal, or doing any editorial work. So we have thousands of. This is more than I think this is for a few months ago. So we already have like almost 40,000 researchers that have signed this, that have participated in this boycott. So this is one example of how the academic community is reacting.
And why specifically Elsevier?
Elsevier is a big story. Elsevier is like one of the most aggressive publishers. To give you an idea, Read Elsevier is the umbrella organization. Is Read Elsevier, and Elsevier is the publishing branch. But Read Elsevier had also an arms dealing branch, dealing arms. So when academics discovered this, they made another boycott. This was before this boycott that I showed you, saying to Elsevier that you have to close down the arms dealing branch if you want us to continue working. And it was successful, and Read Elsevier decided to close down the branch that was doing arms trading in order to keep the publishing industry because it was more profitable than the arms trading. This is just one example of Elsevier, and there are other many examples of aggressive politics by Elsevier. So this has become the target, although other publishers are equally intervening in the process. But Elsevier is very famous for some aggressive politics. I just gave you one example, but there are many other examples that they're trying to maintain the largest piece of the pie in the publishing industry market. So another initiative very famous was the Budapest Open Access Initiative, where there were some academics and publishers and open publishers trying to put forward a different model. They met and they made some guidelines or some specifications about how things should work. And one of these recommendations, they demand that there is unrestricted access to all scholarly research, and especially the research that has been publicly funded. So this initiative then started the many initiatives by publishers and by other organizations or other institutions trying to address this problem of open access, so that we have open access, especially to publicly funded research. So, out of these movements and initiatives, we have two different roads to open access for all, two different ways to achieve open access. One was, I'm going fast because, I don't know, are these things that you are familiar to you more or less? Or is it interesting to go through this history of open access? Anyway, I will go. If you have any questions, just stop it. So there are two main roads to achieve this open access. One is the green open access through self-archiving. Self-archiving, probably you know archive. Physicists, they have a repository. Is anybody here who doesn't know archive? Okay, archive is a website, let's say. It's a platform that was built in 1991. And its function is to receive articles by physicists. In the beginning, it was just physics. So a physicist, a group of physicists that write a paper, the moment the paper is written, they can send it to the archive, and it gets immediately published on this website. Okay? And it receives a digital object identifier. This is the DOI that you've seen in publications. A DOI is like a way to make your work permanent. Because once it gets assigned this number, it can be cited and it can be accessed easily, not just by the main platform, but it can be mirrored to other servers or to other points. So it's always, more or less, receiving a DOI secures that this digital object, will be always permanent there. It will not be erased if the platform shuts down, or if there are server problems, or if the company goes bankrupt. This is like a means to secure that the object will be there permanently. So when the physicists write a paper, they send it to archive, and this is already published there. And at the same moment, they can invite other colleagues to view the article and make comments, so that they have, since 91, they have an open community of discussion and of communicating the results immediately without the interventions of journalists. So this is called self-archiving, because I myself as an author, I archive my paper on a repository, which is in this case is archived, but right now most universities, they have their own repositories. So, for example, there are some repositories, each university has a repository that's probably run by the librarians of the university. So you can send your article there immediately as it is produced, and then they will post it on the website, on the repository's website. Or you can even consider self-archiving when you post your article, or even on your personal website. Any of these forms of making your research public, not through the publisher, but through any other visible outlet, this is considered self-archiving. So when you have self-archived your work,
the first archiving website was at Cornell.
Yes, archive is the archive of the, it was called also Los Alamos archive. Yes, this is it's the same. It's the same archive. Yes, that was the first in 91. 91, by the way, was the year that the internet was launched. So in physics, immediately the first thing that they did was to create this platform because it was really addressing a need to be able to communicate the results immediately without having the waiting times of publishing to a journal. So self-archiving is one of course, self-archiving is not enough. There are some recommendations, some guidelines. You have to have, for example, what we said, the DOI, you have to have permanency in your archive, but this is now in your article, but these are now things that all repositories secure. When you send them an article, that's the difference between posting it on my website and sending it to archive. If I send it to archive, then there's a security that this work, this object will be permanently archived there. So when you meet some specifications and you have archived your work, this is already considered green open access because you can archive the last version of your work, meaning that you want to publish, for example, to Nature, and you send to Nature, it gets peer-reviewed by the reviewers, and then you have the final version accepted, and the final version that has been accepted by the journal is a version that you can also post to archive, maybe as a second version, or you can send it after it has been reviewed. So when you have the paper published in Nature, for example, and your version in archive, this can be identical. So you don't have the PDF version of the journal, but you have exactly the same content with the same figures. The only thing that changes is the PDF format of the journal. But the content is exactly the same. So this secures open access in the green way because any reader that is looking up the article through the title, for example, in Google Scholar or whatever database, will also get the version of this open access, the open access version on the repository. So this is one way to secure open access. And then there's the other way.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this okay with all publishers that you're allowed to put your...
We'll go to that later. It's more than 90%. We'll show the figures later how many publishers accept this model. And there is the other model, which is called gold open access, which means that the publishers say, okay, we will not charge readers, but we need to cover our publication costs. We have some publication costs, so we need, if readers will not pay, then somebody else has to pay. So let the authors pay. So gold open access transfers the cost from the readers to the authors. So they say, okay, we will publish the research open access, but the authors have to pay. The prices that authors have to pay per article varies a lot. And this means that the costs are also, for example, I'm jumping from one to the other, but you all know PLOS ONE. PLOS ONE is a journal. PLOS ONE was a very successful experiment in the publication industry because it said, we will publish openly, but we want 1,000 now that the price is $1,350 per article. So you have to pay this money and then your article will be open access. And it became a big success because it was easy to publish in PLOS because the guidelines to reviewers were do not evaluate the article based on its novelty, but just if it's sound methodologically. If you don't find any big problems with the paper, then we just accept it, we publish it there, and we charge the money to the authors. So people started publishing a lot in PLOS ONE. It got an impact factor. It got a relatively high impact factor of 4 point something. So PLOS now is a really famous open access experiment, but it's the most profitable open access publisher right now. And it's like the hallmark of the gold open access way. And just to give you an idea of where is the problem there is that one of the guys that founded PLOS recently founded another business which is called bldg. Are you familiar with this bldg? bldg is like PLOS, exactly like PLOS, but it charges $100. And it charges $100 per life. So if you pay this $100, you can publish as many articles as you want. So the really easy logical argument here is if you have two people selling the same thing, potatoes, and one charges 1,000, one charges 100 for the same product, which is an article, just imagine how much the real cost is. It has to be even lower than 100 in order for the second business to even to make profit. So imagine what's the profit margin of loss if there is the possibility of doing exactly the same thing for $100. So the green way is still a way that basically you still pay twice. You still pay once to produce the research and pay twice to publish the research. And the way to get away with this for the journals is to push policies, for example, in the European Union and also in the United States and everywhere where research is being publicly funded, to lobby in where the decisions are being made, in order that the public grants also offer a budget for publication. For example, for Horizon 2020 now, there is for FP7, open access was not mandatory, but now for Horizon 2020, open access is mandatory. This means that you have to publish your research open access. But the European Union does not specify if it has to be green or gold. So you can choose whatever. But there is a lot of pressure from publishers to push towards gold and open access, because green open access is free. You don't pay. If you have your article self-archived, then nobody has to pay for the article to read it from the journal. And this, of course, is against the interests of the publishers. But gold open access doesn't affect the publishers because they still get their revenues, not from the reader this time, but from the author. So there's a lot of pressure from the publishing industry, so that the European Union, for example, let's talk about our case. The European Union accepts a significant part of the budget for publication costs, which means that when I make my proposal for the grant, I have to assign part of my budget for publication costs. But this is, if you think about it, if they equally accept the green open access way, then there's no interest in spending money for gold open access, because you can secure open access at no cost via the green open access way. But this is like, although they cannot hide the possibility, the fact that it can be achieved through green open access, it's not being made public, and they're trying to cover this way and promote more gold open access, so that they don't have the interest of the publisher. So there's a big game being played worldwide with publishers and politics of funding agencies. Now, your question about repositories. Here are the open access repository, the types. We have institutional, meaning that the university or any institution has their own repository. These are disciplinary, like archive, like Cornell. So disciplinary means that for example, in physics, every physicist can send their articles there and send to the repository. And we also have two other types, but you see that the larger part of the pie is for institutional repositories. Here is the distribution of repositories per continent. We see that most of them are in Europe and then in North America. And I think I have a figure about, okay, here. So there's this website which is very useful because it gives you the name of the journal, and it tells you what are the journal's policies regarding open access. Instead of going to every journal and try to look on their website, this gives you immediately what's the policy of the journal. So we have that. Here are the legends for the different colors. The green is that you can archive, preprint, and postprint. Postprint means the PDF of the publisher. They even allow you to publish their own PDF version. The blue is that you can archive postprint, which means that you can archive only the PDF of the publisher. You cannot have your own version. The yellow is that means the preprint, which means that my version, for example, my document on my local document before it's being not the PDF version of the publisher. So all these three categories allow free open access in one way or another, which is sufficient to secure open access for readers. And the white are the publishers that do not allow open access at all. So we have 71% of publishers allow one or other form of self-archiving. These are the numbers. This was your question.
the main publishers side which colors? Nature Publishing Group, for example, or Oxford.
Sometimes Nature accepts, of course, accepts preprint, and also that it accepts preprint. I'm not sure. I think it doesn't accept the PDF. Big, the green and the blue is the biggest, and the yellow. Yes, this is the PDF. Yes, most you will find. It depends on also disciplines. It depends on, but many, almost all journals now. This white part of the pie is mostly humanities, because things there are not moving as fast as in other disciplines. And the scholars don't have also the same attitude towards, they're more afraid of opening up their work. So humanities is a category, but it's in there. So if we had the same graph only for life sciences or basic research in physics, we would have different numbers. Most journals in hard, let's say, sciences, they accept not the PDF to publish, to archive not the PDF of the journal, but the preprint after the peer review, the exact same content, they allow you to publish. So normally you won't have any problem now with big journals. They have so much, there's so much pressure now, and that they have to accept this. But anyway, you can visit this website and find out for specific journals what are the policies. And sometimes it's for journals, not for publishers. So maybe different journals from Elsevier, they have different policies. But usually they do accept self-archiving in one way or another. And of course, this gold open access has become also a big business because it's very profitable. Because scientists want to publish, there's a lot of production, and now we're forced to publish open access. So we need to open up the market and create more journals to host all this research. And now it's to be open access. So we have many. These are the numbers of open access journals. You see how it's rising now. We have another 5,000. Okay, so this is another like an irony about the two ways of open access. Let's see what is required for one way and what is required from the other. In order to have gold open access, we need to create or convert 23,000 open access journals. We have 1,000, these are all figures, so we have to make all journals open access in order for the gold open access to be successful. We have to find funding to support for open access publication costs. If you don't have funding by your grant and you want to publish, then you have to find the money somehow. And we have to persuade the authors of the annual 2,500,000 articles to publish in new open access journals instead of the existing total access journals. So this needs a big shift from the strategy of the scholars. For example, if you're used to publishing in a specific journal, which is not open access, this means that you have to change. Now you have to start sending your articles to an open access journal. If this journal where you were sending has not been converted to open access. So all these are necessary steps in order to have a successful gold open access model. In order to have a successful green open access model, the only thing we need to do is not legal, but it's included here. It's to persuade the authors of the annual 2,500,000 articles they publish in the existing total access journals to also self-archive them in their institutional open access archives. So if you compare what is needed for one model or the other, you see that this should be much easier because it doesn't. The only thing that the academic needs to do is continue publishing wherever they want in the same journals, but make sure that the final version of the paper is also published posted in an archive. So this already is open access. So it's easy to have open access. You don't need to pay money. You don't need to change the journal where you send your work. You just need to post it to some archive, and then you comply with the guidelines of the European Union. Nobody can tell you that you should publish in open access, and you're doing it for free. And you're doing it for easily without changing your ways of publishing your regular. Okay, this is.
Actually, there's this research day that is like
Yes.
journal Facebook or something, and
Yes.
you can request a journal or an article from the publisher, and if you're lucky enough, it was better to it.
Research gate, you request directly from the author.
Yes.
Yes. So you
sometimes it's already uploaded,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's not there to request it, and there's a button that you request it, and sometimes they send it, sometimes they
Yes, this is taking advantage of a loop in the hole in the system, because although the journal doesn't allow me to post my PDF version, I can always send it directly to the author. So there are some repositories, and also in ResearchGate there are some buttons, some ways to make a direct request to the author. So even if it's protected by the journal, the author can send you a private email with the article. So this is another way that you can bypass the legal problems with the journal. But ResearchGate, we can talk about ResearchGate and other initiatives. I just wanted to, this is a slide where I'll just read from here because it's very interesting. It's how publishers think. This is a blog for commercial publishers where they exchange opinions, and it's public, so we can have direct access to how they think and how they discuss between each other. Green open access has no promise of delivering augmented revenues to the publisher, but gold open access opens up a new customer, the author, him or herself. Gold open access, in other words, represents a business opportunity, whereas green open access represents a business problem. Thus, we have the emergence of a relatively new market where publishers fight to collect fees from this new class of customers, authors. How to compete is another matter. Most traditional publishers rely on the strength of their brands to bring the articles in. As one would expect, wherever there is competition, the matter of pricing comes up. And here, the established publisher may have a problem. So you understand that when we're talking about publishing in gold open access, we're talking about commercial publishers who try to enter the new market and try to make profit by using, how it says here, it says clearly that they're using the brands. So what journals are trying to do is to build strong brands, like Nature is a big brand, that will secure that the articles will be coming in despite the high processing fees for publishing. These are details, this is lobbying between publishers and the European Union. So, this was a brief introduction about the open access movement, about how things are more or less built, and maybe we can have a second part where I will tell you what we are doing and what we suggest to change this system. Any questions? Okay, so open access is talking about the accessibility problem, but we focus on, we realize that we're not talking about just accessibility. There are more, the journal business industry is causing more problems to researchers and to research and to science in general than the problem of accessibility. So we identified 3 processes. The evaluation process of how an article is evaluated, if it's good or not, the validation of if it has to be, this is a quantitative evaluation. This is the validation, if it's worthy of being published or reaching the public or not. And this is the dissemination. So when these processes in the current model, they all depend on journals. In what way? The evaluation usually is being performed through impact factors. You know the impact factor, of course, right? How it's calculated, all these things. So impact factor is one way of evaluating the individual article. Of course, I don't know if you have thought about the problem with the impact factor and the individual article. You know that the impact factor is assigned to a journal. So if I publish, Nature has 30, for example, let's say 30 impact factor. And if I publish my article in Nature, then supposedly my article has 30 impact factor. But 30 impact factor refers to the journal, and it's calculated by how many citations the articles published in Nature received from all other journals, right? So, but if you see the distribution of citations per article in Nature, for example, you will see that there's a very long tail, which means that a small percentage of the articles published in Nature receive many citations. Let's say, for example, that only the 20% of the articles receive more than 80% of the citations. And then you have a long tail of articles that receive close to zero citations. So it's very probable that even if I publish in Nature, I have a paper that has been cited 0 times. But this doesn't differentiate between articles. If I publish in Nature, then I'm done. And I have the Nature's impact factor, I have Nature's prestige, and nobody will look at how many citations my article has received. So the impact factor is simply not a valid method for evaluating individual articles. It's used only for, it should be used only for journals. However, in the lack of other metrics, we are being individual papers and individual scientists are being commonly evaluated by the impact factor of the journals where they're published. So you understand that there's a methodological flaw in if you use the impact factor as an evaluation of articles or individual researchers. The other problem is the validation. Again, an article is being validated again through journals, by journals, through the peer review system. You have all had experience, I assume, with the peer review system. Usually in the traditional model, the editor of the journal receives the article and assigns 2 or 3, usually no more than 3 reviewers. But in a blind, it's a blind system, meaning that the identity of the reviewers is never revealed to the authors. So nobody actually knows who has reviewed the paper. And the actual text of the content of the peer review disappears, it gets lost after the evaluation process. So this is the traditional review system, which is being criticized as not transparent, prone to bias, and generally like a hindrance to the scientific process. And we have the dissemination, which is through publishing, and we said that here in this process is the open access movement. It only focuses on how we disseminate science. But in science we have all these other problems, these other processes that when they're journal dependent, they produce specific issues. The issue of evaluation, we know that the publication pressure is becoming more and more enormous as the quantity of the published product increases. There's a lot more competition, and because we fight with our CVs, and the way to evaluate our research is through the impact factor, then we have what has become known as publisher perils, the hunt for more publications. We have, I guess you all know about the problems now. We're trying to publish as many papers as possible in high impact factor journals, creating good science and publishing. If you, I don't know, in my area, when I go back 20 years ago and I start reading the papers of 20 years ago, I see many studies in one paper. Now we see long lengthy articles and with many studies included in the same paper. Now the trend is separate studies in many different papers so that you get and you repeat results. So we're talking about problems that are not necessarily related to open access, but they are related to the journal processes, the way that we're being evaluated. And then the peer review, actually, what does it mean to have published in Nature? The only thing it means is that it has been evaluated by 2 people that we never know who they are. Even if the editor knows who they are, he doesn't even know if the actual text, there's no accountability. So it's very easy, for example, for a reviewer to send a paper to a PhD student to do the review himself, because nobody will ever know who did the review. So since we don't have accountability, it's a very poor system of quality control, and it's also very prone to bias, as the names are not automatically revealed. So it's a very common problem, the problem of retractions. It's becoming more and more important. Big journals are continuously retracting articles because the community finds out that there's been methodological problems. There's actually a website that's called Retraction Watch that is creating a list of all articles that are being retracted by big journals, which is just a symptom of this big problem, the fact that the peer review system is flawed, it's not transparent, and it's not a good quality control. And then the open access is here, what we discussed with the accessibility. So the thing to note here is that we don't just have the accessibility problem. There are many other things problematic in the way we do research and communicate research that all have to do with this journal-dependent process in our view. So what do we propose? I will not use the slides, I will just... Okay, here's the rise of the retraction, what we were talking about. are the reasons for retractions in percentages. This is misconduct errors like self-plagiarism here, fabrication or falsification, and plagiarism. This is around 3%. These are other. So we see that all of this part of the pie here, they are conscious attempt by authors to publish bad quality research, and this is only allowed because it is it's only allowed by the actual peer review system. And okay, so we forget about the slides now, and I will just tell you what we are doing and what we suggest. So our idea is simple. We have the accessibility problem can be addressed by self-archiving. Once authors they make common practice to archive their work, this means that open access is good for the public. The only thing that's missing now are these two processes. So why don't we forget about journals, and why don't we send all our work to archive? The problem is the evaluation and the validation. We still need journals because they are the way they offer us the prestige, they offer us the impact factor, they offer us the credibility for our work, and they offer us the grants and the money that we need to continue to run our research. So what's the alternative model that we propose? If we accept green open access, if we say that we send our papers if we self-archive our papers to repositories, then what we're missing in this system is the peer review. In a way, the peer review is a validation to validate that our research is good quality, and a way to have a quantitative evaluation so that we can compare with each other for grants and promotion. So what we propose is to create an overlay system of peer review to all papers that have been self-archived in any way or even published in a journal. What this means is I will just describe an alternative process. So you finish your paper with your research group, and then you archive it, for example, let's say to archive. Okay? The normal procedure now is that when you post your paper on the archive, you can immediately share it with your colleagues, but you can even include it in your CV, but it will not take that into consideration when you compete for grants, for example, because there is no quality control in archive. Everything can be posted in archive. So we start with this process, and then what we do, the author has the option of personally inviting any expert in the field to make a peer review of the formal peer review of the paper that has been posted on archive, for example. So if I'm publishing a research on an area and I know that Pavlos is an expert in this area, then I personally invite him. I send him the link with the article on archive, and he has the option to accept or reject, just as if he received the invitation by a journal editor. So he has the option of accepting or rejecting. If he accepts to write the review, he writes the full text review, which is the full text review is posted along the article, the original article. He gives a quantitative evaluation also on different axes, for example, the methodological soundness of the paper, the originality, the clarity of content, different factors. So he also gives a quantitative evaluation, and then he signs the review. So what my interest as an author is to have a paper that has been posted open access, and now I'm starting slowly to build the prestige of this paper because I received evaluations by specific academics that are considered experts in the field. So this is a process that is dynamic. It doesn't have to end in any way. It doesn't mean that whenever I have two evaluations, I have to stop. I can build the prestige of my article as long as I want. So I can have 30 or 40 evaluations by known people, known experts in the field. And this is a parallel process that it's compatible with the current way that we do things, because this paper you can also send it to a journal at any moment during this process. So imagine that if you now, when we send a paper to a journal, we send it with no other credentials than our names, the content of the article, and our institution. Imagine that if you send a paper, and along with the paper, you give a link where the editor of the paper can find also formal reviews for this paper. So this means this generally is positive for all agents involved in the process, because for journals also, because retraction is a big problem in journals right now. If the editors are very afraid of committing an error and publishing bad research, if we send them the research already evaluated openly by specific people that have accounted for the reviews, then they have more, they are more secure, they are more safe that the public, that the research they're publishing has been evaluated by more people, not just the 2 reviewers that they have selected, and they're not even sure who has actually performed the review. So this is good for journals and the quality of research in general. And it provides quantitative metrics that are specific to the article and not to the journal. So you don't have to. You're not using any journal brand names, but you're using specific metrics that have been produced by referees that have actually read the paper.
I have a question. So
Yes.
in this scheme, only invited reviewers can leave a review, or any uninvited person can leave?
The idea is that we have a space for invited reviews and we have a space for comments that are less formal.
Because the war can start there, where
Yes.
uninvited reviewers are coming.
Exactly. So we can have invited reviews that have been invited. The invitation has been sent by the author, and we can have less formal comments by people that have not been invited. But if you want to make a formal evaluation of the paper, like you can suggest yourself or other colleagues as a referee. So the author receives a suggestion for a reviewer, and he can choose to accept or not. And as everything is transparent, the rejections are also visible. So it looks weird if an author is continually rejecting people who want to review the paper. But on the other hand, you cannot have anyone posting any comment formally on the paper. You have to invite the reviewer. But you can also have comments, but even the comments, because all people registered in the system, they register with real names, and they have to be academic affiliated to an institution, so they have to be professional researchers. Even the comments are signed. There's nothing blind in the process. And this is the way, because immediately you start to say, okay, I will invite my friends, and my friends will, or my enemies will write that comment, so the war will begin. So the war will begin that will be open and transparent. Right now there is a war going on, but it's hidden.
Can you really secure this transparency, that you can make sure that everything is transparent? How? Technologically, how do you do that?
The only way is by registration. Maybe there are more ways, but the registration, like when you register to the system. Yes, you have to check that this person exists. And
So you need like a service that would check every.
Yes. Right now that we are like in a testing process, we don't have many registrations coming in, so it's easy to check. But in the meantime, anyway, right now we're just testing the application, so we're not very strict. But the idea is that you will have a very strict control of who's registering in the system, and if it's the real names and academic affiliations.
It's very important.
Yes. Yes, of course.
Right.
So there will be, the system is of course prone to all this war, let's call it like this, but the difference is that it's open and transparent. Which means that even if I'm an evaluation committee and I want to judge the quality of the article, I have access to the names and the conflict of interest that has to be disclosed, and even if I lie about the conflict of interest, then there's a way to find out, there's a way to check the names and do all this work. And referees are also being evaluated by the community. So a good evaluation can receive points, let's say, so that reviewers can also build their prestige in the system. And when you're a good reviewer, then you get a higher rating, and you appear, for example, when you're looking for reviewers, these names show up, and you can also use it in your CV, for example. You can say that as a reviewer, I'm ranked this, or I have this. So it's like another asset for your CV as a reviewer, which right now doesn't exist. Because reviewing is like a very valid work in our.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Nobody knows
It gets lost. Yes. In the system right now, you're either writing good papers or you don't exist. But we exclude scientists that do not have original ideas, but they're very good, for example, methodologists, and we need them for evaluation. But there's no place for them. It's either published or press. But now we leave space also for good reviewers, for example, that they can formally insert in the system, and it can be acknowledged in their CV.
They cannot dance, but they can be dancing teachers.
Hmm?
People that cannot dance themselves, but can be good dancing teachers.
Yes, for example. So that's more or less the alternative work that we propose. Right now we are an organization by right now we're a little bit more than 100. We're 120 people from 17 countries. Open Scholar is we're all volunteers. There are many initiatives that are coming up now that are trying to do similar things. At the moment, we're the only organization that we're non-profit and we are volunteers. We do not have any. When we receive funding and when we have some assets, we can pay, for example, for programs and stuff. But all the directors and all the people that are high ranking in the organization are only volunteers. And we're open. Anyone can join as a member, can collaborate and contribute at equal ranking with the rest of us. So it's more or less an horizontal hierarchy in the organization. We've built a platform, this Libre, which is open access. The code is also open access and can be built collaboratively by the community. So we like trying to represent this philosophy and this ideology in this new market that is being created, and it's trying to open up the scientific processes for the good of science and research itself, even if sometimes it's against academic interests of people who have been used in doing things the other way. It's something that we believe it's time that we propose new ways and see if the community is ready to accept them and see how it goes. I can show you the video of the video. You have internet access?
Huh?
You have internet access here.
Yeah.
Oh, we can skip the video. If you go to the website is Open Scholar. If you go to the website, you will see some other initiatives other than the we have the Open Peer Review initiative, which is it's a manifesto of our ideas that you can find online on the site of Open Scholar, which is a document that can be signed by anyone who agrees with our ideas on the way that we want to promote openness in science. And you can also become a member of Open Scholar. By becoming a member, of course, it's free, and there's no economic obligation. What happens when you become a member is that you're directly involved in our decision making. We get in touch before we make important decisions. We do online meetings in order to decide together for the future of our organization. So you become one of us, basically, with equal rights.
Do you have already an archive, or you read you? So if I have a paper, can I send it to you? You have already an archive, or I should archive it somewhere else and then send you the link to do something like reviewing?
Yes, we have a platform right now that's being in a testing phase. You can find it in Liberating Research. Actually, if you go here, you will get a link to the platform. The platform is not even beta. It's like testing between open testing right now. Right? And you can use this platform as a repository. So, for example, you can send us a PDF, put the PDF here, or you can send the link. If it's already somewhere else, we want to avoid duplication of information. If you already have it somewhere, then we prefer to get the link. If you don't have it, then you can use it as a repository. We also give a DOI, we also have something.
And if someone sends it, has good reviews, let's say, etc., two good researchers have reviewed this paper, and I make a decision that I don't want to publish in a specific journal because I already have two good reviews. Can I cite this paper? Can someone else cite it?
Because you get the DOI.
So you mentioned the DOI
you can cite
citations
yes.
after the. And also, do you have, I suppose that someone who will visit this platform, let's say, will be able to see the articles, will be able to see the reviewing.
Yes.
He will also also able to see something like citations, its indexes, and stuff.
Exactly,
like
yeah.
this.
So everybody, the non-registered users, they have read-only access. So they read all content, all reviews, everything. They cannot put out papers or reviews, of course. But they have read access, and they have some metrics, which is metrics produced in the system, and metrics harvested by other services. So for example, there are some services, metrics, for example, that they give you also how many tweets the article has received and other kind of the citations. So we get this from other databases and we also present them on the site.
Yes, but if it is not published anywhere, but only this
Yes,
site, it's the same thing. Right?
Yes, it's like archive, for example.
Thank you by itself.
Yeah. There are people using archive articles posted in archive, they use put them on their CV. The only difference is that there is no variation on that. So
Yes,
you can imagine, if on top of that you have some reviews, some good
Yeah, this is
reviews.
what I mean. If you already have the vibration, then you don't need a general stuff.
No, you don't need it for the.
Yeah, you are okay with your article. You say that you have two good evaluations. I'm happy with this, so I will cite it to the my next page.
Yes.
Will this be tracked by Google Scholar or by PubMed?
Yes, that's the idea. Right now, we kind of self-funded this project. We started building the thing without funding. So right now, we want to stop self-funding the project and start to look for serious funding from foundations or from the European Union, or grants, or donations. And so right now, I'm telling you where we are at the moment. We have this testing version of the platform, and we want first to secure funding so that we then take next steps. And of course, this dissemination activities, this promotion is a big part of what we want to do.
And another question is, a problem with the peer review, the reviewers cannot reproduce the work of the authors. Mainly because, for example, they don't have the code, or the authors don't describe well what they did, and things like that. Will this platform secure, let's say, or will provide to the reviewers a way that they will be able to reproduce the work, for example, require from the authors to send the source code, or require the authors to describe the work in a way that can be reproducible, something like that? Well, it will be only checked by the reviewers.
Ideally, right now we don't have the power to request to demand from authors specific things. Right now, what we want to do is like to offer the possibility of an overlay service of peer review. So you can, we not for example, you can send anything. You can send this overlay service of peer review can work also for data, for example. If you have your data somewhere, there are repositories for data or for code, for example. If you have data published in a repository and you have digital object identifier, you can use our service to review the data and the code. But we do not, as a repository, as a platform, because we said that it's also to be used as a repository, we do not intervene or request or demand from the author. But you can use it for reviewing the code that someone else posted. And there are many repositories right now. There are like mushroom repositories for code and for data.
Let's say, I'll talk about myself right now. I have a paper on the archive in Cornell with data, something like 2012 or something like that. And it's with my name, described, etc., etc. And then at the same lab that I did the system, which is one specific protein belonging to one specific family of proteins, somebody else did another protein that belongs to the same family with the same properties, etc., and with only something like 80%. And he did exactly the same steps that I did with my idea and everything, and he published it to Untitled. And that's the later date. It's like 2013 and mine was 2012. So what happens in that case?
If yours is previous, you can claim, you can send it to the editor, for example, but if in a court of law, You can use archive as a valid.
But I could send the archive link to you, perhaps, and
Yes, you can hand it review. You can hand it review, and when you get this auto identifier, you publish in a repository like ours, for example, or any other repository, institutional repository. That one of the benefits is that you get the date that can be changed, for example. So you get like certification.
yeah, it's something like 1.5 to 2 years
Yes.
prior to the.
So imagine if right now the paper is published, the other or its paper is published. There's little thing, not many things that you can do. You can write the letter to the editor, and maybe you can get retracted. Although
It's not the same protein. It's exactly the same idea, but you can say that it's not the same thing because it's a different protein.
Okay.
So it's same family, same system, same properties, but we changed.
But you can find it hard to publish. For you, it's harder to publish now because it will be published. So what's the problem now with your paper?
It's a complicated story. That's why I didn't publish it in the first place, because there was political issues between my former lab in Germany and Cambridge. So they were not in agreement with each other. They're collaborators. So my work, which was in the middle, was in disagreement between the two main collaborators. So I ended up like that. And I couldn't publish it because they didn't agree with each other. So I left. I came here to work on other things. And the German lab took another protein because my protein was in collaboration with Cambridge. So he took another protein which is homologous, same protein, and he followed the same steps, my idea, and published it.
So basically, if you had the platform like that, you could publish immediately your work. So can you be afraid of creating some problems to your lab if you publish it there and you start the open discussion or something?
Of course, there are people who would want group leaders or whatever, who don't want this process because they're afraid. It's like exactly like open access. Now we know that you can. Physicists they started doing this and they demanded from journals to accept the papers to get published. But people are hesitant now because they say, okay, if it has been posted there and already commented and reviewed, why would I publish to my journal? No publisher will accept that. So what we're doing now is that we're getting in touch with publishers and forcing them or asking them to accept these papers that have been previously reviewed. So,
but again, you can't really press them. They can reject you with some other reason.
Yes, exactly.
The reason being that
an editor can say, no, we're not publishing. So it's exactly the same with open access, that it started with only a few journals accepting, and now we have more than 70% in multidisciplinary research accepting preprint papers. Now there are already publishers. All these open access, supposedly ethical publishers, are actually forced to accept this because there's no obvious negative side effect to using this process. The only thing is that it's threatening the revenues from publishing based on the traditional way. So, but this cannot be used as an argument, official argument. So all these open access, PLOS for example, accepts it. All these open access publishers, they do accept this way of the article being discussed online before being published.
Have you considered also a way to make the article, to make revisions of the article possible?
Yes.
Because if I get comments that leverage the value of the article, maybe I, as an author, have the possibility to revise it, and then I should get a new DOI or.
A DOI can get the new DOI. There is a possibility for versions, and the new DOI is not exactly new. It's there is a class in the DOI that it's a newer version or review of the previous DOI. So it's like an extension of the DOI.
This is a great thing because then the articles will supposed to get better and better.
We are using the philosophy of software. What we're doing now in research. Imagine if you have your software, different versions of your software published in in different sites. So the user, it's very important for the user to find the most updated version of the software. And it's the same with research. If I want to see your latest research, I should be able to see it in the same place and know that what was the timeline of your research. And this is the last version, and what's the thread of your history, how you got there, what are the reviews you got,
Yes, this is very important.
how people intervene, because now you can acknowledge the reviewers not just by thanks to the anonymous reviewers and the acknowledgements, but you can even start a collaboration if a reviewer. I found myself in the position of I could do a review, and I actually did. I will tell you so. I was reviewing a paper, and I discovered something that was a methodological error and a way to improve a lot the paper. So if I gave anonymously the review, the paper would be accepted if they followed my comments. It would be accepted. The paper would be a lot better than the original version, and I would be acknowledged. So what I did is I sent an email to the authors directly, and I said, I am the reviewer of your paper, and I see this and this and this, and we started the collaboration after that. And we published up papers later. Why shouldn't I be able to do this in the current system? Isn't it what science is about? I mean, why should I have a block by the editor not to reveal my identity to the author?
Yes.
If we can improve together the research.
So in this case, the editor is a handicap in the evolution of research.
Exactly, yes.
But it's not necessary. You can sign publishing.
Many editors don't accept signed reviews. Some they do, and sometimes, but some editors they don't accept.
But are there any other such actions, or is this yours the only one?
No, there are many. When we had the idea in 2009, we published the first paper, and I did of course, before we published, I did my review of what's around in the market. There was nothing. And in 2012, that we were busy building the platform and all that, and then I did again. I found 2 or 3, and now there are more than 10 or 15. The only thing that is different in our case is that all other initiatives, they're trying to find a place in the market, and somehow they're not somehow to get, for example, the money from the publishers, or from the reviewers, or from the authors. What we're proposing is the totally open access, volunteer, open community version of this way of doing peer review.
Do you think that you will manage to keep it this way?
Maybe
Can
not.
it expand?
It's in the constitution of the organization. If Open Scholar survives, it will survive like this. If it doesn't, it will be something else.
You have to change the name or something?
Yes, this cannot. This is like the constitution of the organization. This is all contemplated in the constitution. So Open Scholar cannot do any. It doesn't have the legal authority to sell anything or to get bought or to. So that's the big difference we have with other initiatives, and the fact that we don't ask exclusivity. For example, we're talking about ResearchGate. ResearchGate is collecting the articles, not links, but the articles themselves. And for example, you know Mendeley?
Yeah.
Mendeley. Do you know that it was bought by Elsevier a few months ago?
No, we don't.
Yes, Mendeley was bought by Elsevier.
Which means it's not going to be free anymore.
Which means that anything can happen. They say that they will continue,
Okay.
but there was this merge, and now anything. I mean, it's now officially illegal, it's part of Elsevier. So it means that all the data there are the property of Elsevier, and they can do anything they want with that. So this is something that we want to protect ourselves and the community from. That we want to get, and we don't ask exclusivity. It doesn't mean that we don't want the paper to host it in our database. We don't want to have any database anymore. We just want to offer the service. And we want the paper can be hosted anywhere. It can be even published in the journal. What we want to do is to allow the authors to have this opportunity of self-reviewing or initiating or self-handling the review of their articles. And we're not building a database that can later become an asset and be bought by an organization. Because this is more or less what other initiatives are doing. They're building databases that after some point they can become a big carrot for names, for publishers, or for other institutions of the environment. So that's more or less the difference that they have.
You mentioned the, let's say, dynamic evolution of each article, right? That can change during time. Will this create problems with the citations?
Yeah, that's because there are other initiatives right now. For example, F1000, it has exactly the same system of versioning, and there is another company called Crossref that has created a way to track versions of the same paper. So the idea is that the citation will go to this dynamic paper. It will be, the citations will follow from one version to the other.
Yeah, but the point here is that...
But with an identification that the citation will change, will say which version of the article cites to refers to. So you can have like the third version of your paper, and you can have the citations, you can have a total of citations, and you have citations per version. That's the way. It's not our idea or what we implement, but we want to implement the same method that has been already implemented in other platforms.
I have a question. It's not really on the dot of the investment, but maybe you know something. What happens in the field of publishing the results of clinical studies? Like this has been a big conspiracy there with journals being owned or financed by the publishing, by the pharmaceutical companies, and clinical studies being published in these specific journals and not really so open access anymore. Like in the governmental sites where the government has been financing certain clinical studies, they give a link to the results, but not to the whole, like a synopsis of the results, but not to the whole article. So very often you cannot really get completely the results from the clinical studies. Do you know if some evolutions happening there, some initiatives?
I know, for example, what you're talking. I know from first experience that authors are being approached by publishers or by funding agencies, and they already know the name of the journal where they're going to publish the research before they conduct the research. So they're being asked to write a paper for Nature, for example. They already know what they're getting out from the. So in this area of clinical research, if there is any
if there is any steps to make it more publicly accessible.
It's following the same group, like trying to make open access.
Okay, this is probably a completely different subject of pharma publishing the research.
The problem is not about accessibility. Of course, accessibility helps there, and blind peer review helps. So all these things, whatever, all these things are allowed by flaws in the system.
Like if European Union has new laws about that, it should be more accessible or something. Because it's really like public money goes to the trials, to the research, and then it's not really.
No, NIH in the United States and the European Union has already made open access mandatory for publicly funded research. Yes, this is mandatory. For example, no article published with all articles published, for example, within Horizon 2020.
Yeah, but it's starting from now. The old ones are
FP7, no, for example.
like the previous year studies.
No. But now it's mandatory. Now you have to have open access.
Are there more questions?
What I would like to do is to invite you to visit the site, the Open Scholar site, basically, because the platform, the platform is under construction, so you can also test the platform if you want. But if we have an Open Scholar site, you can become a member of the organization. We can be directly in touch for further developments, and if you want, you can sign the manifesto. You can read exactly how we propose to solve this problem, so you can put your signature and help us with the goals. And of course, any kind of ideas, suggestions, practical help with developing a platform, or discussing with colleagues or promoting good ideas, you can be directly in touch and be working together.
Yeah, one last question because it's unclear. Compared to a peer-reviewed journal, when can somebody assume that an article has the same value, or when can somebody use this publication in his publication list? This is something.
In your publication list, you can use it immediately. I mean, you can
Yes,
use
but-
archive. The question is the agency that will evaluate you.
Yes.
You will send it, but will they take it under consideration?
This is the.
Exactly. This
When,
is,
when does it get the value of a peer-reviewed journal?
When more people join this, it becomes popular.
Only this.
Only if this at the end has a journal type, I think, at the end. So you can create an electronic journal, let's say, with a bunch of PDFs in the same subject.
Or only
This may be like a publication.
To organize it.
If you have the whole thing that the journal has, peer reviewing, everything, then at the end you can just make an electronic version of the journal, like open journal, whatever. Like this, but you have
I think
maybe
it must be a journal. It could have something like a citation index. So unless this article has 20 citations, then it's worth being considered.
so the idea is the vision. What is the vision? So that you imagine that you're an evaluation agency, and
Yeah.
you have 2 CDs, okay? And you have, or you have 2 papers from different people or groups. So one, you have a publication in Nature, for example,
Yeah.
which is top, and the other, you have a publication over here in Libre. And what do you know about the Nature? What do you know? What you really know about the Nature paper is that it has been reviewed by 2 anonymous people, 3 anonymous people, and has been published in Nature. What you can know about the other has been reviewed by 30 people, let's say, that you can know their names, and you can see the reviews. So it's a more quantitative, and also you can have quantitative indices, that you cannot have them with the other system. You just have the impact factor of the journal. So it offers more quantitative information and also qualitative information. So actually you have more information for the paper to make a better informed decision, right? So this is going to happen objectively. And then it's a question of the person who's evaluating what kind of information they will take into consideration to make the judgment. So our vision, long-term vision for the future is that these things will start to count more and more. Like before, impact factor was the only. Now suddenly we're looking at the H index, for example, or we even have the altmetrics that are counting number of visits and downloads, and which are really less informative than what we propose, which is quantitative information coming directly from people that have read the paper and they're experts in the field. So if we start building these new indices, our hope is that in the future people will start to consider them. For the moment, of course, they won't. The evaluation committee will see and doesn't recognize. I mean, they will start looking for where it's published and how many citations it has. But slowly, when we start in the future, if this works, we can have more quantitative information that people will start to acknowledge its utility for evaluation. So that's the long-term vision. The good thing with this process is that it can work in parallel. It doesn't require from academics to do something different than what they do. So you can send your paper to Nature, but at the same time you can have a parallel life in this system, which is different than requiring from people not to send to Nature because Nature is not open access, and send it to a different smaller journal because it's more ethical or it's more.
Although, as far as I know, many journals request that you do not send your paper to multiple journals at once.
Yes, no, of course, no.
But this also can be changed.
Because journals require exclusivity. This self-archive, for example, is not a journal, it's a repository.
Yeah.
But you cannot send it to journals. But journals are, it's the difference between a journal and a
So this is
repository.
the difference, okay.
Yes, this is not a publisher. It's not, it doesn't.
Yes.
Your paper actually can be in archive. We don't need the paper. So nobody can tell you, no, it's already, it's an archive. And it's not just an archive, it also has some reviews that have been offered through this service.
So this,
Is there any graph that shows whether papers on archives, so open access, completely open access papers, receive more or less citations than papers on published by publishers?
Yes, there's a lot of research done on this subject, and there is a citation advantage. If you research citation advantage of open access, you will find a lot of research showing that there is a citation advantage.
So there is a citation advantage when you both send to some repository and some journals, or only to some repository?
Both, they have citation advantage. Between the two ways, I think it's the green that has more citation advantage. I'm not sure about the comparison between gold and green. But in general, open access has a citation advantage compared to not open access. Papers that are more visible, that are open, get cited more. I don't know between the two ways. I'm not sure about the graph.
Green
There is
and
also.
Between the green
Green
and
and
gold.
gold, yeah, I'm not sure about that. But there is the data. I just don't know.
Okay.
But there is still this problem, even in this case, of if I have very specific, if you evaluate me by the views of my paper, or the reviews of my paper, it's still an impact, while I might be doing something very specific compared to you. So we cannot really be compared. And if I'm doing cancer and you're doing ecology, we cannot really be compared. So.
It's the same with.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really solving this. It is a very big
The problem of the multidisciplinary,
Yeah.
yes, it does.
That the number shows what kind of research you are.
One thing that is interesting for multidisciplinary research is that right now we have, for example, big groups, like we have groups of 20 people writing a paper and two people evaluating the paper. Why do we need a 20 people group to write the paper? Because it's multidisciplinary, because you need all these different people because each one covers a different area. But you cannot ask from two reviewers to evaluate all 20, to evaluate, for example, both the methodology, every algorithm included in the paper, the data, it's big work for two people. In this system, you can have people, for example, if you're using an algorithm in the paper, somewhere in the paper, then you can personally invite the author of the algorithm directly to let you know just if you have used correctly this algorithm. He doesn't have to read the entire paper and write a complete review. He can just confirm that the application of the algorithm to this specific problem is correct. So this comes with the article. It's like you get a guarantee from the inventor of the algorithm that it has been used correctly.
Yeah, multidisciplinarity is very much promoted now, but actually there is no way to evaluate the paper, multidisciplinary paper. Exactly. So people are trying and doing a lot of multidisciplinary work, and then just two reviewers
Imagine the reviewer that received the Nature the Science paper about the Human Genome Project. Like the two reviewers and the thousands of authors.
Yeah.
And they had to say if it's going to be published or not. But you can, in this system you can have as many reviews as you want, and you can have them for specific parts of the paper where they're experts. You don't ask them to evaluate the entire paper for, if it's novel, if it's original, if it's just tell me if I used your algorithm correctly here. And then I get the okay, and then that accompanies the paper through his life. And this is like quality guarantee for my paper. And no reviewer can come no blind reviewer can easily come and say, no, you didn't do that correctly. You can say, yeah, but the inventor of the algorithm says it's okay, so.
Yeah, nowadays you read a paper and you would like to know what the reviewers have said about that. Right?
This is again information that is lost. It's a lot of work, as you said, and it's lost. And by the way, the reviews in our system receive also a DOI. So they become citable items. Yes, this is important. They become citable items. So in your track record, your academic record, in your CV, you can say, you can also use your review. So I reviewed this paper, for example. And if you review papers that get very visible in the future, then you gain visibility from the papers. Because when you have a paper that has been reviewed by 5, it's very highly cited paper. The names of the reviewers are also associated with the paper. So you get visibility as a reviewer as well. So exactly. So you have motivation to review papers that you believe that will become. Exactly.
More questions? If not, I would like to thank Pandelis for his talk, very interesting talk. In case you will be around for a couple of hours?
Yes.
Good. So if there are more questions, suggestions, you can contact Pandelis. And I think we can go for lunch now.
I'm sorry it was very improvised. I didn't have anything prepared, but I hope it was useful.